Ladies and gentlemen, let me begin with a truth that will shake you. Being smart isn't enough anymore. The world is full of smart people, but very few are dangerously smart. Dangerously smart people don't just know things, they see things before others do. They don't just learn fast and they adapt faster. They are not dangerous because they hurt anyone. They are dangerous because they can't be stopped by anything. The truth about becoming dangerously smart begins with silence. Not the silence of ignorance, but the silence of deep thinking. When everyone around you is eager to speak, to show how much they know, to prove their intelligence through endless words, you must learn the power of stillness. The real strength of the mind is not in noise, but in depth. Most people listen only to respond, but the dangerously smart person listens to understand. They don't rush to fill the air with words. They let their mind work quietly in the background, observing every movement, every emotion, every inconsistency. You see, the problem with the modern world is that it rewards loudness, not wisdom. People who shout the most seem to get attention, but those who think the most earn respect. Thinking has become a lost art. We confuse activity with productivity, and we confuse talking with knowing. To become dangerously smart, you must reclaim the ability to think deeply, to stop chasing the next sentence and start chasing the next idea. When others are rushing to speak, you must learn to pause and ask yourself, what is really being said here? What truth lies behind these words? Because beneath every conversation is a pattern, a structure that reveals what people value, what they fear, and what they hide. A dangerously smart person listens not to the words, but to the silence between them. That's where the truth lies. That's where insight grows. You have to train yourself to step back from the chaos. In meetings, in arguments, in negotiations, don't compete to talk first. Compete to understand better. The person who thinks first and speaks last always owns the room. Why? Because they have processed everything. The logic, the emotion, the intent. They don't react impulsively. They respond strategically. When others give opinions, you offer clarity. When others get caught in emotion, you see the situation as a chessboard. Every move calculated, every outcome considered. Dangerously smart people are not those with the most information, but those who can see patterns in information. And that begins with thinking when everyone else is talking. It begins with creating a mental distance between you and the noise of the crowd. When you're surrounded by loudness, social media, news, opinions, gossip, it's easy to become reactive. You begin to think like the crowd without even realizing it. You start to borrow thoughts instead of creating them. But to become dangerously smart, you must learn to think independently, even if it makes you stand alone. Especially when it makes you stand alone. Thinking deeply doesn't mean overanalyzing. It means building a mental discipline to process complexity without losing calm. It means holding multiple perspectives at once, understanding both sides of a debate, recognizing both the visible and invisible forces shaping a situation. The dangerously smart person doesn't judge too quickly. They delay conclusions because they know that truth is rarely visible on the surface. They allow time for ideas to mature inside their mind, the same way a craftsman allows time for steel to harden before it's used. Every time you resist the urge to interrupt, you strengthen your mental muscles. Every time you hold your opinion back until it's refined, you raise your level of influence. People begin to notice that when you finally speak, it matters. Your words carry weight because they come from depth, not from ego. And that's the essence? Ego is the enemy of intelligence. Most people speak to impress. The dangerously smart person speaks to express clarity. When you stop chasing approval and start chasing understanding, your thinking becomes sharper. You no longer fear silence, you embrace it. Silence becomes your laboratory where ideas evolve, solutions form, and wisdom is born. When you train your mind to think in silence, you also train it to become immune to noise. You stop reacting to every headline, every opinion, every criticism. You no longer need validation to feel certain. Your confidence comes from internal reasoning, not external praise. That's what makes you dangerous. Your calm cannot be shaken by other people's noise. In this world, the one who can stay still while everyone is moving has the greatest advantage. Because while others burn their energy in reaction, you conserve yours for creation. You are not wasting your mind on meaningless arguments or emotional impulses. You are saving it for moments that matter. When opportunity appears, you are ready because you've already thought 10 steps ahead. To think when everyone else is talking is to take control of your mental environment. It's to choose thought over impulse, reflection over reaction. You begin to see how predictable most people are. They speak before they understand. They argue before they analyze. They want to be right instead of being wise. But you operate differently. You let them exhaust themselves while you build your understanding quietly. When you finally move, your actions are sharper because they're backed by clarity. Your strategies are stronger because they're born from perspective. Your decisions carry authority because they come from patience, not panic. And that's what makes you dangerous. And dangerously smart people are not born. They are built through the discipline of thought. They understand that mental silence is not weakness, it's focus. When you can pause in the middle of noise, when you can slow your thoughts in the middle of pressure, you access a level of intelligence that most people never reach. Every day, practice being the one who thinks when others talk. In every conversation, look for what's not being said. In every situation, look for the unseen connection. In every decision, take the extra moment to see the full picture. Because intelligence is not about speed, it's about accuracy. And remember this, your greatest breakthroughs won't come from noise, they'll come from silence. Your biggest ideas will arrive not when you're shouting to be heard, but when you're quietly listening to your own mind. The world may reward loudness in the short term, but it always bows to wisdom in the long term. So, learn to think when everyone else is talking. It will make you calm when others panic. It will make you strategic when others are impulsive. And it will make you powerful when others are predictable. That is the first and most critical step to becoming dangerously smart, mastering the art of thinking deeply in a shallow world. Because in a time where everyone is screaming for attention, the person who can remain silent and think clearly is the most dangerous of all. Becoming dangerously smart isn't about memorizing information, it's about collecting skills. Not just one, but many. Each skill you learn is like a hidden weapon, silent yet powerful, waiting for the right moment to change everything. Most people build their intelligence like a wall, one subject, one specialty, one predictable path. But dangerously smart people build their minds like an arsenal. They collect knowledge, ideas, and abilities from everywhere, and then combine them into something no one else can replicate. In this world, information is cheap, but integration is rare. Anyone can learn a skill, but few can connect it with another. That's what makes you unstoppable. Think of your skills as ingredients. On their own, they may not be special, but when you mix them with creativity, timing, and understanding, they become a masterpiece. A person who only knows one thing is useful, but a person who understands how multiple things work together becomes irreplaceable. Let's imagine two people. One is a specialist, brilliant in one area, perfect in one task. The other is a learner, maybe not perfect at anything, but good enough at many things to connect ideas others can't see. When technology changes, when industries shift, when systems evolve, the specialist freezes. But the learner, the collector of skills, adapts, evolves, and rises. Because dangerous intelligence is not built on knowing one thing deeply, it's built on knowing how to learn anything quickly. To become dangerously smart, you must start seeing every new skill as an investment in your power. Learn how to speak clearly, because communication shapes influence. Learn about money, because understanding numbers gives you control. Learn psychology, because people, not systems, drive success. Learn design, because how things feel often matters more than how they work. Learn storytelling, because ideas only change the world when they're communicated emotionally. Each skill you add sharpens your edge. Each ability you develop multiplies the power of the others. Dangerously smart people don't learn for certificates. They learn for survival. They don't chase degrees, they chase dimensions. They are curious about everything. They study things outside their comfort zone. They explore, not because they have to, but because their hunger to understand how the world works never stops. While others specialize in a single language, they become multilingual, not just in words, but in thought. And here's the secret: every skill you collect interacts with another one in unpredictable ways. When you learn coding and psychology, you understand how humans interact with machines. When you learn finance and storytelling, you know how to sell visions. When you learn design and strategy, you know how to build systems people actually use. You stop being limited to one path. You can move between worlds: business, technology, creativity, leadership, and that flexibility becomes your advantage. But collecting skills isn't about doing 100 things poorly. It's about mastering the connection between them. You don't have to be the best at everything. You just need to be good enough to understand how the pieces fit together. Because when you can connect things that others see as separate, you create something no one can copy. That's how innovation is born, not from isolated expertise, but from cross-pollination of knowledge. Think of it this way: a swordsmith forges a blade by heating, folding, and shaping it repeatedly. Each layer adds strength. Each strike adds sharpness. The same applies to your skills. Every new discipline you learn folds another layer of intelligence into your mind. You don't abandon your old skills, you reinforce them with new ones. That's how your intelligence becomes durable, unbreakable under pressure. Dangerously smart people are not afraid to look foolish when they start something new. They're comfortable being beginners because they know that mastery begins with humility. They ask questions others are afraid to ask. They learn from everyone: a janitor, a driver, a student, a child. They know that wisdom hides in unexpected places, and arrogance blinds you from seeing it. The more you learn, the more you realize how much there is left to learn. That curiosity keeps you sharp. Each time you collect a new skill, you're not just adding information. You're changing the structure of your thinking. You start to see problems differently. You can approach challenges from multiple angles. You become harder to replace because your mind doesn't fit into one category anymore. That's what makes you dangerous. You become a system thinker, someone who understands how everything connects. There's a beautiful irony in this journey. The more skills you acquire, the less you rely on any one of them. You stop being desperate for opportunities because you can create your own. If one door closes, you build another door. Because you understand how doors are made. You no longer fear losing a job, a position, or a title, because your value doesn't depend on a single role. It's built on the layers of ability you carry within you. Every time you invest in a new skill, you are planting a seed for future confidence. When you can write, speak, lead, and build, your possibilities multiply. The world stops controlling you, you start shaping the world. Dangerous intelligence is freedom. Freedom that comes from being capable in many directions. But here's what separates the truly smart from the dangerously smart: is our application. Learning skills is not enough. Applying them creatively is where the magic happens. You must experiment, build something, fail with purpose, combine two ideas that shouldn't go together and see what happens. That's how new industries are born. That's how revolutions begin, when someone dares to connect what others kept apart. When you collect skills like weapons, your mind becomes a laboratory of possibilities. Every day you can experiment with a new combination. The more you test, the more you discover how much control you have over your destiny. Because the most dangerous mind is not the one that knows everything, it's the one that can build anything from what it knows. And as your skill set grows, your confidence changes. You stop fearing change because you can adapt to it. You stop fearing failure because you can pivot from it. You stop fearing competition because you can outlearn anyone. You move from being a worker to being a creator, from being dependent to being unstoppable. Every book you read, every course you take, every mistake you analyze, it all becomes part of your arsenal. You never lose by learning. Even when a skill seems useless now, it may become the key that unlocks your biggest opportunity later. That's why dangerously smart people never stop learning, because they understand that the world is constantly shifting, and the only ones who stay powerful are those who keep evolving faster than the system. So, collect skills like weapons. Collect them quietly, relentlessly, and strategically. While others chase comfort, you chase capability. While others waste time proving what they already know, you spend time learning what you don't. That's how you become someone no one can predict and no one can replace. The goal is not to be a genius in one field, but to be fluent in the language of many. Because when you can translate knowledge across different worlds, you control how those worlds interact, you become the bridge between ideas, and bridges, unlike walls, never go out of relevance. One day when you look back, you'll realize something powerful. You didn't just collect skills, you built a freedom. Freedom to think wider, act faster, and move smarter. Freedom that no economy, no company, no person can take from you. That's what it truly means to be dangerously smart. To possess so much invisible strength that the world has no idea how to stop you. The road to becoming dangerously smart does not only travel through classrooms or universities, it goes through libraries, late nights, quiet reflection, and a hunger that never dies. Reading is not a hobby for the dangerously smart, it is oxygen. But here's the difference: most people read what is easy, what is trending, what everyone else is talking about. The dangerously smart person reads what others ignore, what others find too dense, too uncomfortable, or too old. They read what makes them think, not what makes them feel good. In a world drowning in shallow content, you must learn to dig deeper. When everyone else is scrolling, you should be studying. When others read to escape reality, you must read to understand it. Knowledge is power, yes, but only when it is uncommon knowledge. Reading what everyone else reads only gives you the same thoughts as everyone else. But when you dive into the forgotten pages of history, psychology, philosophy, and failure, you start to see patterns that most people will never notice. The truth is, the human mind becomes what it consumes. Most people feed their minds entertainment, gossip, or headlines. But the dangerously smart person feeds their mind with ideas that stand the test of time. They read thinkers who lived centuries ago and find lessons that still govern the present. They study great failures, not just great successes, because they know every downfall carries more wisdom than every victory. When you read what no one else reads, you start to see life differently. You realize that every challenge you face has already been faced before, maybe in a different form, maybe under a different name, but with the same human emotions behind it. You begin to see that human nature, ambition, fear, greed, love, pride, never changes. The technology changes, the world evolves, but the psychology stays constant. Once you understand this, you can predict people's actions, anticipate patterns, and navigate chaos with calm precision. That's what makes you dangerous. You see, reading doesn't just fill your mind with facts, it shapes how you think. Every page you turn teaches your brain to focus longer, to imagine deeper, to analyze wider. Reading rewires your mental software. It teaches patience in an impatient world. When you sit with a book, you are training your mind to handle silence, to engage in dialogue with ideas, not distractions. The dangerously smart person knows that every hour spent reading is an hour spent sharpening the blade of their intelligence. But reading blindly is not enough. You must learn to read strategically. Choose books that challenge your beliefs. Read authors you disagree with. Read opposing viewpoints, complex philosophies, and uncomfortable truths. Growth doesn't happen when you read something that confirms your thoughts. Growth happens when you read something that destroys them and forces you to rebuild stronger. When you resist the urge to defend your opinions and instead question them, you elevate your consciousness. The dangerously smart person doesn't read to finish books, they read to transform perspective. They don't count pages, they count insights. Sometimes one sentence can change how you view the world forever, and those sentences only appear when you're willing to read beyond the surface. Every book you read adds another lens to your vision. The more you read, the more lenses you collect. You stop seeing the world in one color, you start seeing it in millions. You become capable of holding complex ideas, seeing contradictions, and understanding paradoxes. Because life itself is a paradox. Let's say you read about economics, then psychology, then biology, then art. Individually, they're different subjects, but together, they teach you how everything connects, how human emotions affect markets, how biological impulses drive creativity, how art reflects power, how money amplifies fear. You begin to see that nothing exists in isolation. This interconnected understanding is the foundation of dangerous intelligence. But you must go further than reading books. You must live them. Knowledge that isn't applied fades. So, after reading, reflect. Write down your thoughts. Discuss them with others. Test them in your daily life. Reading gives you theories, living gives you proof. Combine them, and your mind becomes a force that can't be manipulated by trends or opinions. Most people read to sound intelligent. The dangerously smart read to become intelligent. They don't brag about what they've read, they let the results of their thinking show it. Their ideas evolve, their perspectives deepen, and their ability to connect the dots becomes sharper than ever. There's also something subtle yet profound about the books you choose. The average person reads what's popular because they want to belong. The dangerously smart person reads what's rare because they want to transcend. When you fill your mind with timeless wisdom, you stop being controlled by the latest noise. You start thinking in centuries, not seconds. You stop reacting emotionally to every trend or argument because your mind sees the larger arc of history. Every empire, every revolution, every invention, all of them were built by people who read differently. They studied what others dismissed. They went deeper into thought when others were distracted by entertainment. The same principle applies today. While most are busy consuming quick content, the dangerously smart are building the next chapter of humanity's progress. But here's the most important lesson. Reading what no one else reads doesn't just make you intelligent, it makes you very unique, because knowledge is like DNA. Once you absorb it, it becomes part of who you are. Your decisions, your words, your creativity, all of it starts reflecting your expanded awareness. You become unpredictable because your ideas come from sources others have never explored. You start speaking with confidence not because you memorized facts, but because you understand patterns. You'll notice that when you read deeply, your conversations change. You stop engaging in shallow talk. You crave depth, clarity, and purpose. People will notice it. They'll feel it when you speak. You won't need to raise your voice. Your calm will carry authority. Because when knowledge runs deep, it shows in silence as much as it does in speech. Some people spend hours trying to impress others. The dangerously smart spend hours learning how to impress themselves. They measure progress not by praise, not by perspective. Every new insight becomes a step toward mastery. They read like warriors, not for comfort, but for strength. When you decide to read what no one else reads, you will often feel lonely. You will look around and realize few people understand what excites you. But that loneliness is the birthplace of brilliance. Because solitude is where intelligence grows roots. The crowd gives you popularity, but solitude gives you wisdom. So fill your shelves with voices that challenge you. Read about great failures, lost civilizations, ignored scientists, misunderstood artists. Read old books that time tried to forget. Read stories from cultures you know nothing about. Read to break your mental walls. Each page is a key to a new room in your mind, and the more rooms you unlock, the bigger your world becomes. In time, you will realize something profound. Being dangerously smart isn't about knowing everything. It's about knowing the things others don't even think to know. It's about building a mental library so vast and diverse that no situation, no problem, no opportunity can surprise you. The world belongs to those who think differently, and thinking differently begins by reading differently. Don't just read to pass time, read to expand it. Don't just read to learn, read to awaken. Because when your mind awakens to ideas beyond the ordinary, you stop being part of the crowd. You become the one who leads it. That is the power of reading what no one else reads. It doesn't just make you smart, it makes you dangerously smart. Life is not a collection of random events, it moves in patterns. Every rise, every fall, every success, and every failure, they all follow invisible rhythms that repeat themselves. To become dangerously smart, you must learn to recognize those rhythms before others do. This ability is what separates the ordinary mind from the extraordinary one. The difference between someone who reacts to life and someone who predicts it. The world looks chaotic to most people because they never slow down enough to notice the patterns running beneath the surface. But once you train your mind to see them, the chaos begins to make sense. And suddenly, you are no longer a passenger in life, you become the navigator. Look around you. Every human behavior, every business cycle, every emotional reaction, they all move in circles. People fall into the same arguments, make the same mistakes, follow the same trends. Nations rise and collapse for the same reasons, only dressed in different colors and timelines. Companies fail not because of new problems, but because of old habits that repeat themselves. The dangerously smart person understands this history is not just what happened, it's what keeps happening. And once you can read that repetition, you gain the ability to anticipate the future. Pattern recognition is not magic, it's awareness refined through observation. It begins with a simple habit: paying attention. While most people are distracted by noise, you focus on details. You watch how people speak, how they react, how they behave when no one's watching. You observe what drives their decisions, what triggers their emotions. Over time, you begin to see consistency in their inconsistency. The same behaviors looping in disguise. When you can predict human behavior, you stop being surprised by it. You stop wasting energy on emotional reactions. You start using information as foresight. Every successful strategist, investor, leader, or creator has mastered this skill. They see what others ignore. They don't wait for trends, they spot them forming. They see opportunity where others see randomness. To most people, the world looks uncertain, but to the dangerously smart, it's full of signals whispering what's about to happen next. The economy moves in cycles. Human emotions move in waves. Innovation rises, peaks, and resets. Once you can recognize these cycles, you can act at the beginning while everyone else reacts at the end. Imagine being in a storm. Everyone around you is running, panicking, trying to protect themselves. But you've been studying the clouds for years. You know how storms form, how long they last, how they end. While everyone's scared, you're calm. While they hide, you plan. That's what pattern recognition gives you: a control in uncertainty. You can't stop the storm, but you can predict it, prepare for it, and use it to your advantage. But here's the truth: seeing patterns requires patience, and patience is rare. Most people are addicted to instant gratification, to fast answers, to quick wins. They react to what's right in front of them instead of looking at the bigger picture. The dangerously smart person slows down time in their mind. They zoom out. They don't get lost in today's noise. They study yesterday's data and tomorrow's possibilities. They ask questions that connect the dots across time. What happened the last time this occurred? What caused it? What changed? What stayed the same? These are not just questions. They are the foundation of predictive intelligence. You start to notice how human nature creates repetition. People get greedy at the top of the market and fearful at the bottom every single time. Companies get comfortable after success and vulnerable right after comfort. Every single time. Relationships break not because of one event, but because of small, recurring patterns that go ignored. Every single time. The dangerously smart person doesn't see problems as random. They trace them back to their patterns. They look for the repeating chain that caused the result. Once they find it, they can predict and prevent it in the future. To develop this kind of intelligence, you must become an observer of both others and yourself. Watch your own reactions. Notice how your emotions follow patterns, how anger, fear, excitement, or laziness appear in cycles. Notice how you make the same mistakes in slightly different forms. Awareness of your own patterns gives you mastery over them. Once you can break your own cycles, you become immune to manipulation, because no one can use your predictable reactions against you. Pattern recognition also sharpens your decision-making. When others make choices based on feeling, you make choices based on rhythm. You can tell when it's time to act and when it's time to wait. You understand that life is not about constant action, but about us timing. The best sailors don't fight the wind, they use it. Likewise, the dangerously smart person doesn't fight the cycle, they use it. They know when to expand and when to retreat, when to speak and when to stay silent, when to build and when to destroy. In business and relationships,